in India, for example, or in Africa, do you see any prospect or any hope that this will change?
In India, there is prospect. One thing, we are campaigning with the government to change many policies, which we have. Today, we are in the process of turning about 5.2 million farmers spread across 83,000 kilometers into tree-based agriculture, which will definitely change. Looking at the success of this, the government of India has now made a detailed project report for 13 river basins. These 13 river basins put together will account for 67% of India's land. Last year, they invested some $2.4 billion on that project, but that's not enough. If they continue to invest substantially in the next 12 to 15 years' time, 67% of India's land will turn around. Once it turns around and shows prosperity, definitely rest of it will be done by private agencies and stuff. So India is looking in that way, but India's problem is, as I mentioned yesterday, it is 4% of the world's land and 17.2% of the world's population. That's a serious challenge to manage. In Africa, the problem is very different. In Africa, there is no real-time agricultural culture. In India, there is a very profound agricultural culture. It is something that the whole world has to learn from India in many ways. It's gone bad in recent times because of so-called modern agriculture. For example, in 1950s, India was still suffering from famines, which was kind of a gift for us from the Her Majesty's service. Severe famines in 1942-43, where over 3.2 million people died in a matter of 4 months in a most horrible way. So after that, India was striving to cross this famine bridge. So that person who was the doyen of that so-called Green Revolution passed away just before I left India about 4 weeks ago. Swaminathan, he did a fantastic job. But this Green Revolution was a bridge to cross the famines. We crossed it successfully. Since 1961, there's not been a single famine. It's a huge achievement for a nation and the population. But at the same time, we started destroying the soil with excessive use of fertilizer and pesticide and all this stuff. Not at the scale at which you are using. We are using, we think it's destruction, but America is annihilation. It's using at a different scale. Now people are becoming a little more conscious, but spraying things from an airplane is it's a war scale, all right? So, we have destroyed our soils, we've brought down the organic content significantly. It's just about 0.62 right now, which is bad for the country. The microbial content in southern Indian soil, below the Deccan Plateau, is such that it is the highest in the world in terms of species. Nowhere else on the planet do you find that many species in a handful of soil. We don't know why it is so, nobody knows why it is so, but it has been observed it has the highest number of species. So its ability to bounce back is good. And the weather is good, the monsoons are good for the soil to bounce back if you give it. See, for example, here you have prairies. These are fertile soils only if you manage the vegetation in a certain way. Otherwise, topsoil gets blown away and now it is believed at least 50% of the prairie soil is gone. Another 50%, we don't know how long it'll last. As the wind speeds increase because of rise in temperature, we do not know how it'll take it. Recently, even near Illinois, there was a sandstorm where, multiple cars crashed because a heap of sand came and landed. Roads were covered with sand. So this can happen as the wind speeds rise because this is that kind of soil. If there is no natural vegetation, it'll just fly away. We don't have that kind of a issue because both sides we are protected by very rich, biodiversely very, very rich mountains on both sides of the peninsula. We have that advantage. Our problem is pressure of population. The human footprint is so very high. So human footprint is that high, we should also understand it becomes that high because somewhere it was conducive for life. It is not a place where people want to migrate from. Today they may be migrating for better opportunities elsewhere, but in the past nobody wants to leave India and go because it was very good for life, weather is good, everything is good, food is good. Especially for Indians, the tongue is pointing east. Tongue is always pointing east. This turnaround is happening, but Africa is a different situation. Unfortunately, unless Africa gets a big helping hand from outside, we've tried to work in certain countries like Sierra Leone and other places. There is no fundamental knowledge of agriculture. To teach them everything and get them to become agriculturally competent, some little maize, something they're raising. In India, it's not like that. Farmers are raising 4 to 6 crops on the same land in 1 year. 4 crops plus 2 intercrops. So they know agriculture like that. It's just that because the land holdings have become so small over a period of time, average land holding is 1 hectare per person, which is so small, it's not economically relevant. For this, we are finding solutions by making what is called as farmer-producer organizations. Isha Foundation runs 25 farmer-producer organizations. Just 12-13 days ago, we got a national award as the best performing farmer-producer organization. So these things are happening. These are all solutions. But my problem is the pace. Will we move fast enough to mitigate the problem Or will we move at that pace one day when a big disaster hits and then we will turn around? This is…
That's the more likely scenario.
Unfortunately. But fortunately, the federal government in India is agile. We have changed the river policies in the last few years. We have changed the tree plantation policies in the farmland in the last few years. We have brought in subsidy for tree plantation on farmland. These things are very, very progressive, still needs to be propagated properly and reach the people.
Is the Indian government behind this? I mean, this obviously is exactly what's needed in all parts of the world, but is the Indian government supporting those kind of efforts? I mean, this…
See, the efforts in the ground is unfortunately all ours. It's just that all of us who are there full-time in Isha Foundation and also part-time volunteers, because we are working 7 days of the week, nearly 18 hours a day, non-stop 365 days, we are able to keep it funded. Otherwise, we don't have any big funding, we have not approached any big organizations or anything, it's only small people giving small donations but in large numbers. We are managing this. But a time has come, this has to become like a governmental project. Like I said, looking at the success of our project, UNCCD declared that this is the project for tropical lands in the world, this is the solution. Based on that, Government of India has now made 13 detailed project reports. They've invested a little bit of money, but rivers and land and soil are a concurrent subject. That is between the federal government and the state governments. In India, like we have probably 32 parties, and in each state one party is ruling and getting them all on board. I managed this during the Rally for Rivers. I passed through 16 states. In all the 16 states, all the 16 chief ministers participated in my rallies, and central government made this a mandatory law because they saw the support. But getting all these people on board and getting it going in every state is a circus. It's not difficult, you must do circus. You must do all kinds of joker stuff to convince everybody and do this just to get this law. See, there was a law that if you plant a tree on your own land and you grow it, when you need it, if the farmer cuts it, he will be arrested. Activists are there, environmental activists who have nothing else to do except activism, they have no activity in their life. They will protest, police will come and arrest the farmer. I said, who wants to grow a tree now? Nobody wants to grow a tree. Whatever I grow on my land, let it be for my use, then I will grow a tree. Now we change the law. Except they still did not release a few species, we are still working on that. Right now there is a movement in Tamil Nadu, we've started about 3 months ago, that sandalwood, as protest we are planting sandalwood. We are about, I think 1,300 farmers have right now this season, they've planted sandalwood across their thing. We have promised them before it grows, we'll change the law. Because now, sandalwood is from India essentially, the species itself. Now we are importing sandalwood from Australia, because we don't allow anybody to grow. So the only way is to go into the forest and cut it. If you don't want people to go and exploit the forest, you must be allowed to grow the same things on the land, isn't it? And a whole lot of farmers are no more living on the farm. They've all moved to the cities, their children are software engineers. They may be here in Boston, not in Bangalore anymore. And they can't live in the village, they move to the cities. So they would like to do some light farming. 2-3 days in a month, they come down and do some farming and go. If they have to do that, tree-based agriculture is the best thing to do.